Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jess, and in today's crochet along we are going to be making our Penny the Penguin. This is going to be a two-part video. Part 1 is going to be the head, the eyes, and the beak. Part 2 is going to include the body, the fins, and the scarf. So let's gather our supplies and we can get started. So for today's tutorial, I'm going to be using this Baby Snuggle yarn and this Honey Bunny Shine yarn. They're both a size 6 weight yarn, so a bulky size yarn. I'm going to be using the dark charcoal gray for color A, this beige color for color B, this yellow color is going to be for the beak and the feet, and I'm also going to be using this color for the optional scarf, which you do not have to make, but I will show you how to make it in this tutorial. On top of the yarn, we're also going to need a crochet hook. I'm going to be using my 5.5mm crochet hook from Crochet Society. You're also going to need a pair of scissors, a stitch marker, a darning needle, some fabric pins, some safety eyes if you plan to use them. Otherwise, you can also embroider eyes. About 12 to 16 inches of yarn for shaping the face, and we'll also need a little bit of fiber fill. The stitches that you will need to know in order to complete this project is a magic ring, a single crochet, a slip stitch, an increase stitch, and a decrease stitch. You'll also need to know how to work in a spiral and how to change colors. So once we've gathered our supplies, we can get started. All right, so to begin our project, we are going to start with the head, and we are going to start with our color A yarn. So for me, this is going to be my charcoal yarn. And to start off, we are going to make a magic ring. So anchoring with our thumb, we're going to wrap our yarn around our 3 fingers over the top, and we're going to anchor. So we have 2 parallel lines on the top and a cross on the back. We're going to go underneath the front loop, over the back, pull up to make an A, turn your hook, and grab your yarn over here, yarn over, and pull through. Now within the magic ring, we are going to make 8 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we're just going to pull our yarn tail to close our magic ring. So this is what row 1 is looking like. Now you're going to want to place your stitch marker. If you are using just a regular stitch marker, I personally like to use just a scrap piece of yarn, and I just place it right in front of my very last stitch I made in row 1, and that's going to mark my spot so I know where my rows and rounds will start and end. Now moving on to row 2, we're going to place an increase stitch in every stitch around. Now an increase stitch is 2 single crochets in 1 stitch. So we're going to insert our hook into this first stitch, and we're going to place a single crochet, and then we're going to go right back into the exact same stitch, and we're going to place another single crochet, and that's 1 increase stitch. Now we're going to go into this next one, and we're going to do the same thing, 1 single crochet, and then right back in to create another one. And we're going to do this all the way around, and we should have a stitch count of 16 at the end of row 2. is row 2 completed. Now with my stitch marker that I like to use, I'm just going to carry it up forward, right in front again, and I'm going to move on to row 3. Now for row 3, we're going to do the combination single crochet in one stitch and an increase in the next. So single crochet, increase. So 2 stitches in one, and we're going to repeat this 8 times. Single crochet, increase, and your stitch count at the end of this row should be 24. And there is row 3 complete. I'm going to bring my stitch marker up again, and we're going to move on to row 4. Now for row 4, we're going to place 1 single crochet in each stitch around. So we're going to single crochet 24. 2, 3, 4. And there's row 4. Moving on to row 5, we're going to do the combination single crochet 2 and an increase stitch. So 1, 2, and an increase. 1, 2, increase. We're going to repeat this 8 times as well, and we should have 32 stitches at the end of this row. Increase. I will finish this round off camera, and I'll meet you back here for row 6. And that is row 5 completed. Now for row 6, we're going to do 32 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that is row 6 completed. Now for row 7, we are going to start with a color change. So we're going to grab our color B yarn, and we're going to start with that new color. So for me, I'm going to be just using this beige, this kind of beigey color here. All right, so what we're going to do for our color changes is we're going to remove our hook, and we're actually going to pull out that final ending stitch that we made, and we're going to reinsert our hook back into that single crochet, the very last single crochet. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our new yarn, and we're going to grab that yarn, and we're going to finish this single crochet with the new yarn. That way we have our brand new yarn on. And what I like to do is I just want to put a really light knot here just to secure that color change. Now we're going to be changing colors really frequently back and forth. So I personally like to keep my colors attached, and I just bring them back and forth, and I will show you how to do that. But you also can cut your colors as you go. So for row 7, what we're going to do is we're going to start off with, in color B yarn, we're going to place 3 single crochets. So 1, 2, and 3. We're going to pull through, and we're not going to finish this 3rd single crochet with color B yarn. We're going to drop this color B yarn, and we're going to grab our color A yarn again. And we're going to finish this single crochet with the color A yarn. Now you want to make sure you're not pulling too tight your color A yarn, or you're going to affect the shape of your project. So now that we have our color A yarn on our hook, we're going to place 5 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But again, we're not going to finish that stitch with color A yarn. We're going to drop that color, and we're going to grab our color B yarn, and we're going to finish with the color B yarn. Now we're going to place 3 single crochets with the color B yarn, 2, and when we're on that 3rd stitch, we're going to drop the yarn, and we're going to grab our color A yarn again to finish that stitch. Now this can get a little bit messy, but I find it's the easiest way to complete these stitches. Now that we have our color A yarn back on our hook, we're going to place 20 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And for our 20th stitch, we're not going to finish with our color A yarn. We're now going to go back and grab our color B yarn, and we're going to finish this stitch with that. And then we're going to place 1 single crochet in color B yarn for the last stitch of this round. So this is what our inside is looking like. It is a mess, but it's not going to be seen by anybody, so it's okay that it's messy. Now I'm just going to move my stitch marker up. Again, really important to make sure that this yarn is not too tight, or you're going to have difficulties you're going to have difficulties keeping the shape of your animal. So you want to make sure that it's not too tight. All right, now moving on to row 8. We're going to start off with color B yarn, which we should have on our hook right now. And we're going to place 4 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're not going to finish with the color B yarn. We're going to drop that yarn and grab our color A yarn and finish with that. Then for the color A yarn, we're going to place 3 single crochets. 1, 2, and again, don't finish with the color A yarn for your 3 single crochets. We're going to switch to the color B yarn, and we're going to finish with that. Now for color B, we're going to place 5 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We're not going to finish. We're going to drop our yarn, grab our color A yarn, and finish off with that. Now with our color A yarn attached, we're going to place 18 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and then we're going to do 18, but we're not going to finish that stitch with our color A yarn. We're going to grab our color B yarn and we're going to finish with that. And then in this last stitch of, or the last 2 stitches, sorry, of row 8, we're going to place a single crochet with color B yarn. So that's what we're looking like for our color changes so far. And now we're going to move on to row 9. So to start row 9, we're going to place 5 single crochets in color B yarn. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to place our 5th one, drop our yarn, and finish off with color A yarn. Now with color A yarn, we're just going to place 1 single crochet. So you're just going to yarn over and pull through the 2 loops. And then we're going to drop that and grab our color B yarn and finish that off. Now we're going to place 7 single crochets in color B yarn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. We'll grab our color A yarn, finish that stitch off. And then with the color A yarn, we're going to place 16 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. We're not going to finish that off. We're going to grab our color B yarn, and we're going to finish that off. And then with our color B yarn attached, for the last stitches of row 9, we're going to place 3 single crochets. So 1, 2, and 3. So this is what the inside is looking like right now. It just looks like a mess. Like I said, you can cut these and tie knots if you'd like to secure them that way. But if you make them loose enough, it should not matter. When you stuff them, it's not going to pull or change the shape of your head. So just make sure you make them loose enough and you should not have any issues. Now moving on to row 10. With your color B attached, we are going to place 14 single crochets across. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and then 14. We're not going to finish that stitch. We're going to grab our gray yarn. Make sure you have lots of slack in the inside. And once your color A yarn is attached, we're going to do 15 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and then for the 15th stitch, we're not going to finish it. Drop that yarn, grab your color B yarn, and finish off that stitch. And then to finish off row 10, we're just going to place 3 single crochets in color B yarn. One, 2, 3. And that is row 10 complete. Move our stitch marker. Now we're going to start decreasing down our head, and to start we're going to be using our color B yarn. We're going to do the combination single crochet 2 and a decrease stitch, and we're going to repeat that 3 times. So single crochet 2, 1, 2, and then we're going to do an invisible decrease. So how do you do that is you just insert into the front loop of the next stitch and the front loop of the stitch right after, yarn over, pull through both those loops, yarn over and pull through 2. That's an invisible decrease. So we're going to do that 2 more times. So single crochet 2 and a decrease. So front loop, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. Once more, single crochet 2 and a decrease. Then, still with the color B yarn, we're going to place 2 single crochets. So 1, and on this second single crochet, we're not going to finish with our color B yarn. We're going to grab our color A yarn and finish that off. Now, with our color A yarn, we're going to do a decrease and then a single crochet 2. So decrease, same way you did it before. And a single crochet 2. So 1, 2. We're going to repeat this 3 times. So decrease, single crochet 2, 1, 2, decrease, there we go, and single crochet 2, now we're going to place a decrease stitch, and then we're going to do one single crochet, but we're not going to finish because we're going to change colors back to our color B yarn. Now to finish off this round, we're going to do one single crochet and a decrease stitch. And that is row 11 completed. And this is what we're looking like so far. Now moving on to row 12, with our color B yarn attached, we are going to place 11 single crochets across. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And again, with the 11th one, we're not going to finish off with our color B yarn. We're going to grab our color A yarn with lots of slack on the inside. We're going to finish that stitch off. And then we are going to place 11 single crochets in color A yarn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and for the 11th one, drop our color A yarn, grab the color B, finish that stitch off. And in color B, to finish off this round, we're going to place 2 single crochets. And that is round 12 completed. Now moving on to row 13, we're going to do another decrease row. So to start with color B yarn attached, we are going to place a single crochet, decrease, and we're going to repeat that 3 times. So single crochet, decrease, that's 1, single crochet, decrease, that's 2, and single crochet, decrease, that's 3. And then we're going to place 2 single crochets. 1, 2, and finishing off that second single crochet with color A yarn. Now, with our color A yarn attached, we're going to do, again, single crochet, decrease, times 3. So single crochet and decrease. That's 1, single crochet, decrease, that's 2, single crochet, decrease. Sometimes these stitches can be difficult to get into. Just take your time, no rush. Decrease. And then we're going to place 2 single crochets. But with that second single crochet, we're going to drop color A, grab color B. And to finish off this round, we're going to place 1 decrease stitch. just like that. And if you need to tighten your stitches, you can. And that is row 13 completed. And this is what our head is looking like so far. All right, before we move on to finish the head, we are going to place our eyes and we're going to stuff our head. Now for the eyes, I'm just going to be using 16mm safety eyes. You can also embroider eyes if you prefer that, or you can use smaller eyes, whatever works best for you. But I like to place my eyes on rows 10 and 11 of the head, centered in between this color change area. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, and centered between this color change area is where I'm going to place this first one. Now for the second one, I'm going to do the same thing on the same rows, and I'm going to place it about 6 to 7 stitches, with 6 to 7 stitches in between. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 here. It's centered on this side, centered on this side. So that's probably where I'm going to place my penguin's eyes. Once you have a good spot for them, you're just going to place your backing on. And there are your eyes attached. Once our eyes are attached, we will stuff. Now I just want to pull all of these color changing strands to the side of the body, or of the head, sorry, where we did all of our color changes. And that way we make sure we don't get any pulling. And I'm just going to take my fiber fill and I'm going to stuff. Now when I'm stuffing, I like to pull the yarn from the center outwards to make sure that the outside of the head is being filled sufficiently. And then I can put some in the center there where I pulled all the yarn, and just continue to do that until you get how much, like the feeling that you have, that you want for your stuffy. Now you don't want it to be too tight. If your stitches start to split or separate, or you can see the stuffing through them, you've probably overstuffed. But you also want enough stuffing that you're going to keep the shape of your stuffy. So just stuff, and we will have more opportunity to stuff again before we close off this head. So just stuff how you feel is enough. And then once you are finished stuffing, we will move on to the next row. All right, so moving on to row 14, we are going to start with color B yarn, which should be on your hook still from row 13. And we're going to start with 4 decrease stitches. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yarn over, pull through, but leave those last 2 loops on your hook. And we're going to switch over to our color A yarn to finish off that stitch. Now with color A yarn, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do decrease times 4. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. again, yarn over, pull through, and then grab your color B yarn and finish off that stitch. And then with your color B yarn, we're going to place one single crochet. Just stuff these extensions here back down. And I would just stuff a little bit more into the bottom piece of this head before we move on to the final row. This probably will be your last chance to stuff before it gets too difficult. So now for row 15, we're going to start off with 2 decreases. So 1 and 2. We're going to grab our color A yarn to finish off that final decrease stitch. And then we're going to place 2 decreases with the color A yarn. One and 2. And then in color B yarn, we'll place 1 more single crochet. And that is the last stitch of row 15. So I'm just going to remove my stitch marker and I'm just going to stuff these tails from our color changes back in. Now we can cut our color A yarn. You are done with that. And we can also cut our color B yarn. Now what I like to do is I'm just going to make a slip stitch into the next stitch, yarn over, pull through, and pull all the way through to tie off that end. Now I'm just going to take my darning needle here and I'm just going to grab the front stitches of color A yarn all the way to color B. I'm then going to tie a quick knot in these to keep them together. And then I'm just going to grab a chunk of yarn and I'm going to make a little knot here. And that should close off your hole for you. Now I'm just going to cut these yarn ends here. And then I like to take a smaller sized hook and just grab those yarn ends and weave them in. And there is the head of our penguin completed, just like that. All right, so once we have our head completed, I am going to start shaping the face. So I'm going to take my medium weight yarn. So I just have a size 3 medium weight yarn. It doesn't matter what color it is. And I'm going to attach it to my darning needle. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to insert it as close as I can to the top inside corner of our first eye. We're going to push it across to the same spot on the other eye, and we're going to pull that through. But you're just going to leave a tail on both sides, just like this. Next, we're going to go down to the bottom corner of one eye, and we're going to push our needle down through the bottom. We're going to do the same thing to the other eye. Down into the bottom inner eye and down into a different stitch. Next, we're going to just pull our yarn to bring in our eyes, and you can kind of see here, the more I pull, the more it brings in the eyes. And you're just going to pull and bring in the eyes to where you want them to sit. Once you're happy with where they are, we just tie a little knot. And then I just cut my tails here. And then I will weave in my ends. Just like that. All right, so once we have our head completed with our eyes on and shaping the face completed, we're going to move on to the beak. So for the beak, I'm going to be using this yellow yarn, but realistically you could use whatever yarn you prefer. And to start the beak for round 1, we're going to start with a magic ring. And in that magic ring, we are going to place 4 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Close our magic ring up. Once we have it all closed up, we're going to place our stitch marker right in front of that previous stitch, and we're ready to move on to round 2. Now for round 2, we're going to do the combination single crochet, increase. So single crochet and an increase stitch, and then we're going to do that again. Increase, and then another single crochet and an increase stitch again. And you should have 6 stitches at the end of round 2. And that's what we're looking like so far. Now for round 3, which is also the final round of the beak, we're going to do the combination single crochet 2 and an increase stitch. So 1, 2, and increase. So 2 stitches in 1. And then we're going to do that one more time. So 1 single crochet, 2 single crochet, and an increase stitch. And at the end of this row, we need 8 stitches. That's what we're looking like. So we can remove our stitch marker because that was the last round. And we're just going to take our hook and we're going to slip stitch right into that next stitch. And then we're going to cut about a 12-inch strand of yarn just to make sure we have enough. And we'll just pull that all the way through to make a little knot, and there's your beak all completed. Now, we don't necessarily have to stuff this. We can just stuff our yarn tail right in there, and that will provide enough stuffing depending on how large your yarn tail is, of course. Now when we're placing the beak, we're gonna place it right at the point where the color changes from the gray to the beige, and right between the 2 eyes. This is kind of what we're looking like right now. So to hold that in place before we sew it on, I'm just going to take some fabric pins and I'm just going to roughly secure this onto the face. So it should be around rows 10 to 12 that you're going to be attaching your nose, your beak, just like this. Now, once you're happy with the placement of your beak, when the fiber pins are in, we're now going to sew it on. So we'll just take our darning needle and attach our yarn end. And we're just going to sew this right on the face. And you can just remove your pins as you go, just making sure they stay in before you get to that spot so that we can make sure that we're keeping our the location of where we want our nose to be. And once we have that sewn on, I just like to grab a little strand of yarn right at the base here, and I'm just going to create a very small knot. And then I'm just going to push my yarn end to the underside of the head, just to hide that. Then I'm going to cut my yarn and I'm going to weave in that end. And there is the beak attached. And that is the end of part 1. Head over to part 2 for the body, the fins, the feet, and the scarf.